Welcome to Make It, Share It, the podcast where we explore the simple but profound process to overcome fear, doubt, perfectionism, and more enemies of creativity. Make it and share it.
We'll talk to creators of all kinds, from artists and writers to entrepreneurs and inventors, to learn about their creative process, the challenges they faced, and how they overcame them by making and sharing.
Whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or someone who wants to create but feels stuck, this podcast is for you. Creativity, meet courage. All right, welcome back to Make It, Share It, the podcast where we explore creativity meeting courage, and super excited today to have Melanie McWhorter joining us in the studio. So hi, Melanie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and then joined by Coop and Lauren, as always.
Hey guys. Hello.
So yeah, today we're going to get to know Melanie and a little bit of her story, along with her husband, Jay, that she'll share about creating Edison Coffee Co. and just their journey from being a local coffee shop to becoming a roaster that supplies coffee all over the place. Some probably your favorite coffee houses that I'm sure we'll talk about. So just a great journey of making and sharing in the business world, but also a place, as I've gotten to know them, that really does cultivate relationships and explore beauty, so it's just a fun group to get to know. So we're just excited and delighted to jump in today. Thanks, Mel, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm huge fans of you guys. I can just what you have helped our business walk through is just, I cannot express my gratitude enough. And I'm just excited to be here. So.
Well, thank you. Well, we're going to jump in with our usual question. If you've listened, if you haven't, then what we'd like to start with is just how formation happens, at a young age. So much about our life, the way that we think and live and relate to the world is formed in those early days. So we'd love just to start out with that. Like, what's a early kind of formational memory for you, whether it's 4 or 5, 6, or being a teenager, any of those kind of times when you look back and reflect on that, what comes up for you?
Yeah, well, my story, I grew up on a ranch down in the hill country of Texas. I think formative years was all about play and fun outside and exploring. And then as I grew up, got really into sports, and my sister was as well. And so our household became kind of just the stomping grounds of like all sports teams. And so I think growing up, hospitality was just something that like I learned from just my parents opening up their home and my mom just making like literally pots of spaghetti and, king ranch chicken, all sorts of country food. That's how I grew up. And I think for me, we had great country food, but the store was probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And so once I got to college, I met Jay, my husband, at a coffee house that he worked at, and I eventually got a job there. And exploring just food in a way that's not just sustenance as an athlete, like not just like consuming this. I also had a big family, so it was like, when meals were on the stove or ready to go, it's like, okay, how fast can you eat to get as much as possible? And so food and beverage was just very much about fuel, and when I got to college, that all changed. I started working at a coffee shop and started to really like see not only how community could flourish in a space, but also just how food and beverage could just be more than just fuel, and you could actually savor it and you can delight in it, and you could be in awe of it. And so that was just really fun. And then Jay's childhood story was very similar in hospitality. Like his family was an open home to his friends, and But he grew up in New Orleans, and like New Orleans, the food and beverage culture was just and it is just so rich, in depth and in, like literally, I remember him telling me that he would go to like lunch with his family to figure out what they're going to do for dinner and stuff, and talk about like just food, or good beverages was a thing. And obviously good coffee and beignets and stuff is what I think of in New Orleans. But yeah, he just grew up with this depth of appreciation for food and beverage, and also loved the science behind it, like how to make certain things. And so when we met in college, and he was very like, just creative and science driven, and like wanted to know like whether it was food or whether it was like taking apart something and rebuilding it. And I just like, I was very environment centered, and so experiential. Actually, that was my degree in experiential learning. But yeah, it was all about the community, and working at that coffee house was just incredible for me. And then once we got to know each other, and we started dating, I remember his family took me out for sushi for the first time, first experience with sushi. And I just remember being in awe and just like, wow, this like, it was almost like I had been eating in black and white, and now I was eating in full color. Just nothing against my family and the way that, country cooking is all about. But yeah, I remember having an avocado for the first time and just being like, wow, this is insanely good. And so I started to just like delight in those things as well, and not just see them as fuel. And so we both fell in love with different things and complemented different things with the coffee house. And so that's our backstory as far as that goes. Another thing too, as far as I think something that was really formative in those earlier years in college is that gave me a passion for just not just being an entrepreneur, but realizing that like, oh, like I have something to offer to this world that's not just like serving and sacrificing either like through work or like my like physically, like how exhausted can I get? But yeah, I took a British lit class my freshman year, and I mentioned like I grew up an athlete, never really felt I got the intellect gene. I was kind of more on the athlete side, and so I never saw myself as this like, oh, I'm gonna ace all the tests, and yeah, I'd probably never be able to get into A&M these days. Honestly, like this is back in the day when they were kind of letting more people in, and yeah. So, but my professor, I remember we were studying Beowulf, and he asked like a really complex question, and I was like, man, I'm gonna give this a shot. I feel like I, know the answer, and I raised my hand, and yeah, I nailed it. And the professor's like, man, you were able to connect these dots and no one else in the class could. Like, you are brilliant. And I remember that like stood with me, like, or like that kept like, even today, like that's just like someone calling me brilliant was just one of the most formative things that happened to me in those years. And I realized that like intelligence isn't just linear, and that there can be different types, and that like, hey, just because my mind like creatively works a little different, and I'm a little bit more about, connections and like, seeing processes and procedures, and seeing like all of these dynamics, like in patterns and stuff. That's still a form of intelligence, and that's a form of creativity. And so, yeah, that like awakened my eyes to like, hey, I can do this. I can be either creative or can be intelligent in my own way. And so, yeah, I think that opened up all sorts of doors as far as like possibilities and dreaming, and also a passion to instill that in others, like help them see their brilliance. And yeah, so that's formative years.
Yeah. That's a lot. I know it's a lot to condense all that. Yeah. Go ahead and Coop.
I was just going, well, that's second King Ranch chicken. Just put that out there. Cause I had that once a week growing up.
Awesome.
So I have a similar story with food in that we grew up in the suburbs, but raised by people that grew up on farmland.
Yeah.
So my parents, we just figured this out not long ago. They're in their late 70s, have never had Chinese food.
Oh, wow.
And when I asked my dad, do you want Chinese food? He goes, why? And I was like, that's perfect. That's perfect. But that's how, like, when I went to college, when I met my future wife, her family's from South America. And so food, I mean, she was just eating everything, just crazy stuff. And I remember that opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't even know existed. Or to your point, just a higher level of quality, maybe even sometimes like, man, this can be really good. But okay, so this is my first question, hearing that when you guys were working at the coffee shop, was there always kind of a backline plan of like taking little mental notes or maybe even notes in a journal of like, man, if we ever do this, I'm going to do this one better, or we got to do it just like this. Like, was there some undercurrent there of like, man, if we ever had our own shop, I wouldn't do that kind of thing?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, we were lucky that we had our boss, the owner, he was a foreign exchange student from Russia, and he was just incredible. Like, man, he had a delight in things and in work and in just like taught us a reverence for just how a small business works and that the pennies add up. So it's all about the pennies, and it's all about like how we love on people, right? And so every person with any type of diversity or anything just felt so welcome in that space. And we just learned so much from him. So I would say that honestly, we were storing up things that we wanted to replicate or that we wanted to model for our community. And whether it's that, like, you know, the Vlad smiles was like, man, it was office space. He was just so happy all the time. And it makes sense, right? He grew up with nothing. And I mean, the first time he had a cheeseburger was probably, I think, like when he was 19, 20, and same thing with fries. And so it was one of these, like, it's same thing really with everything, like, that delight and that awe and that, like, it just radiated through him. And so that was one of the things, that honestly in that same season that like even made me like, what is, you know, and I knew how strong this guy was in his faith. And of course, I admired that as well. But I was just like, you know, I wanted to know like where this delight came from. And so that was really cool. And I think that's something that Jay and I still hope to model and hope to, be for, not only like, our staff and the community, but the industry as well. Is like, this is a really like hard place. Coffee shops, especially, you know, it's, it can be tough to make everything work and to like have it feel like your dream too. Right. And so, I think though for Jay and I, like it was just always like kind of one of those things that really like, yeah, let's do this when we retire, you know, like, let's make this dream happen when we retire one day and make this happen for our community. We had no idea that, you know, the Lord was going to open up some doors and that we were going to be able to do it, at such an early age, or I say early, we were 30 at the time, but,
Nice.
So I'm curious, like, what did you think you guys would be doing before you retired?
So honestly, like, I'll probably always say my dream job is teaching. I love, my mission statement, what I exist for is to, help develop the brilliance, and create, intricate, connections, and experiences. And so that's like what I, feel most alive in. And so, yeah, when we opened up the coffee shop, I was still teaching and I was still coaching. I was doing Capel's leadership program and I loved it so much. I actually got to like help lesson plan and teach for the set up things for the teachers as well. And it was just amazing. And yeah, I, try to do both for those first few years was really, really difficult. Like, I mean, yeah, the long hours, the like, there wasn't, there were no days off, and so I felt like my heart was like being torn into two different directions. And yeah, like, but it was really sweet in that when I stopped teaching, I felt and I like knew that everything I loved about teaching, I still get to do. And it just looks a little different. My kids are a little older, like it's a staff of, 20-year-olds and now 30-year-olds. And, but yeah, it's incredible. And just setting up those experiences for the community or for our industry. And now even for other coffee shops. Yeah, it stirs my affections the same way that, getting to teach does. And so I do feel like I'm still a teacher in a certain way, maybe. Yeah, just different now. So,
yeah. What I hear in all of that is just the power of others speaking life into us, naming what we see, whether you're a college professor just saying, hey, that was brilliant. Those connections, what that meant to you. We sometimes think that has to be this like multi-year journey of discipleship. And yet it was really one line in particular, that you shared. Yeah. From that story, I think it's just a good encouragement. And then hearing about Vlad, I love that story of one of his gratitude. He just obviously had a heart of gratitude. And then what he instilled in you and Jay, the seeds he planted that are still bearing fruit in our community, that started down in College Station and have borne fruit up in the Highland Village, Flower Mound, Louisville area. So I love that. So what happens, you guys working with Vlad, working at the coffee shop, College Station, and then move up to Flower Mound area, move up a little bit north. And originally this coffee shop was just something in retirement, something a dream that you had. And since I know people listening probably have similar dreams, right? Things that they want to do, but they probably like haven't got there yet. How in the world did you and Jay do that? Like, what was the fast forward button there that allowed you guys to open up this coffee shop?
Yeah. Well, we just wanted it. Like, we were just eager for a place. I had just gone through, this discipleships is called, at our local church, it's called Steps. And, there just wasn't a good place in our community to meet and to have those hard conversations, or good conversations or, and for other people to have like their first dates or to work or to do life. And so we just wanted it really bad, right? We wanted, a place for that. Jay just loved coffee so much. He still is so incredibly genius with like the scientific aspects of it, and the quality control and all that stuff. He can taste things that I'm like, wow, I have no idea how your palate told you that. But yeah, so we just really started getting serious about, our community needs this. Like, let's try and make a way. And we didn't have a ton of cash, like saved up. And we probably, we probably applied for more small business loans, than you could imagine. Like, and yeah, finally, got one. And after, probably about a year and a half of like, writing, Jay, just researched the heck out of, business plan stuff and wrote like a really great one. And we talked with some advisors. We, listened to other coffee shop professionals. We started going to industry events. We just started getting advice. And yeah, we talked to people in our local community, like, hey, if we do this thing, what do you want to see it be? And yeah, so by the time that we got funding and we found a location and, we started like actually building it out and doing the things, we had just so much knowledge, so much support, and so much just like doors open that we thought we were just going to be, like, knocking and like it never happened until we retire. Right. And so just doors kept opening the more we sought out advice, and then the more that we, just kept researching. Jay is a research maniac. Like he can research a ton of things. And so by the time we started, we knew quite a bit, but we still had a lot to learn. And so, and we needed a lot of help. Like I remember, like, one of our best friends, Dustin, like he literally got all of his friends like to come help, like just build furniture in the shop, or to like, just different, like we literally took old Wendy's chairs and like reupholstered them. And they were the nastiest things, where we scrubbed every inch of them and just tried to make something new out of something old and broken. And but we tried to do that with everything in that space and in that first shop. And we did have to learn a lot along the ways. Jay had to build a lot and learn how to build a lot. He's really talented at that, but he still had to, try and fail sometimes. And, but overall, like we were able to open May 2013. So, a couple years after, really pursuing it hard. So.
And I just hear, persistence, seeking the wisdom of counselors, resourcefulness, patience. It's like, in one sense, you could say you guys were impatient because you're like, we're going to do that. Like, we don't want to wait till we retire now. But in another sense, a year and a half is a long time to not know if it's going to work or not. I imagine those were some hard days and nights, like going to sleep, waking up of like, wait a minute, is anybody ever going to give us the funding we need to get started?
Mm-hmm.
So you guys have this open 2013.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like those first few years? Is it successful? Are you feeling like, okay, this is working, we're able to get pay our loan back? Like, just overall, is it average? Or are you like, this is scary, below average? Like, what were those early years like?
Yeah, it was a mix. Like, it was all over the place. Tired a lot, physically and emotionally, but also having a lot of fun. And also just like we're just so young and dumb. Like, we just had so much to learn, and some of that stuff you have to experience. You have to, like for me as an entrepreneur and just a little bit of a perfectionist, I want everything to be perfect. Right. And so I wanted the, nicer equipment. I wanted the, pretty furniture and different things. And we had to really hit the brakes on that. And we had to like, okay, we're going to have an espresso machine that we completely rebuild and just try and make the best of it. And, we're going to have old grinders, and we're going to, we just had to, we had to learn to steward things that, maybe weren't the most ideal. Like, we just had to do that really well. And it was really hard. Honestly, I just didn't understand the financial side early on. And Jay was a lot better with that. But also it was hard for him to just tell me no and just be like, no, honey, budget, like all the time. And it was hard for me to understand like the importance of sticking to the budget and like those lessons that Vlad taught us about like making the pennies add up and count. And it's kind of like, I didn't realize like, oh, how many lattes am I going to have to sell to pay for this thing, or to, and then, so besides just the financial, a lot of it was just like, we were both still working in those early, years, in our careers. And it was a little bit, just like I said, my heart was pulled in multiple directions. And there was a lot of fun. There was a lot of like, fun learning by like experimenting and doing and making mistakes. And one of my favorite quotes, from actually Thomas Edison is, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work, And that was kind of like a lot of our beginning years of like, oh man, we're just gonna, you know, try out everything and anything and have fun with it and see, you know, what sticks as far as long term. And that was a lot of fun. It was also a lot of like hard work and a lot of like, just, I did not know boundaries. I did not know how to be an entrepreneur and a leader. I didn't know how to not push with my ideas to where it was almost like a crushing weight. I had to like learn to step back and to just have patience. And then also had to learn slowly how to be wise. And I don't think any of those lessons could have been possible, like, or we would have made it through without just supportive community, family members that would just help us and just chat with us. And and just a really amazing staff that had more grace for our just learning how to lead and how to love in a new business than we ever deserved. So.
I love this story because I think a lot of times stories they get when someone makes something and it's working or surviving 10 years, that's more than working. Sometimes it's like, it's got a catalyst story of like, and then boom, this happened. And especially with like music or arts, like, and then I met Steven Spielberg in an elevator. And you're like, okay, well, I can't really put that in my business plan.
Yeah.
I love this story because this is authentic to me for all business and creative endeavors. It's like, it takes some guts and some, I'm just going to do it. It takes research. You get to get out of your comfort zone and learn things you didn't want to learn. And then you need to ask advice. You need to have mentors. You need to have community support and feedback. And I'm like, to me, and then you need grinding and sleepless nights. And I'm hoping those Wendy's chairs came out of the sunroom version of Wendy's. Remember how Wendy's had a sunroom for some reason on the side? That's where I would always sit to class it up a little bit. But like that to me, if somebody wanted to talk business, I would be like, you got to love it somewhere because this is what it really looks like. It's like death by 1,000 cuts to get this thing going. Like you're going to need a lot of things and a lot of people and a lot of help. And if you think it's just going to be like this flash in the pan and then you're off and running, I think we publicize those a lot, but I think that's like the 1%. And so this story, I'm like, this to me is the story I would want people to hear of like, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. It's definitely grimy at points and still is at times. I mean, I think the thing that I would emphasize or like, if I could go back and tell myself, it would just, it'd be some of those lessons of, pushing, and that grit, I think, led to some really some things that were unhealthy and some things in my heart that as far as just like grasping for control and trying to make things work. And I think as creatives and entrepreneurs, sometimes like we can get into that mindset where it's like, okay, I'm going to close my hands around this and it's mine and I'm just going to go. And I will say there was multiple times where both Jay and I were on the brink of burnout. And if we could go back and tell ourselves like, hey, these healthy rhythms, these rule of lives, these things are like, the business, like, you can't just trade, and just push through sometimes because it did like lead to some things I had to work through and that still have to work through. And it did lead to some like health issues, I believe. One of my favorite books, A Body Keeps the Score, like those things come back to you. And so I think balance, if I could go back and just show myself like, hey, it'll be okay. Like have fun, run hard, like play well, like learn, fail, make mistakes, but also like breathe, rest, have open hands. I needed to hear that big time when I started.
I feel like that's a lot of the athlete in you too, though. I feel like people that compete at a higher level when it comes to being an athlete, especially in team sports, you don't know any other way than to go until you drop. I mean, it was taught that way, it was pushed that way. The best players were borderline crazy, because of how hard they could push themselves. And so it's like you get into another environment where you see things that need to be done, and your first instinct is, well, I'll jump on that grenade and do it. And so that's a hard thing to be like, well, yeah, but you're also supposed to like basketball. And like, if you win and you're just thinking about going to practice tomorrow, like you got to celebrate these victories. And I don't feel like I had any coaches growing up that talked about celebrating victories really, or like enjoying it. It was work.
Yeah.
And so there's like
work,
that disconnect too.
Put in the grind. Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. So, for the sake of time, I want to move us to what we kind of talked about as trials and tribulations. I mean, even this, we've already gotten to some of the grittiness, but from the outside, if someone was just following Edison, I think you would just be like, man, they seem to be doing really well. Every time I go in there, there's a certain staff that's like their second office. That's, if you know, you know. And there's like, there's all this activity and it's great, but there's some significant trials that emerge, in the middle of this story. And so, man, it's beyond this podcast to really unpack all of them, but maybe just if you could speak to kind of a few things that happen, whatever you're comfortable sharing, and and if you're not, then don't. And then just getting through those like darker days where it's dark night. I think I'll just plug a book that I didn't mean to, but I'm reading The Night is Normal by Dr. Alicia Cole.
Rich Jolie.
Yeah. So I don't know her
You nailed it.
Clearly, but the book is awesome. I'm like halfway through it. But she's really just teaching about the dark night of the soul, which we know well in screenplay writing is always the end of Act 2, where it just feels like everything is lost, and just what we can learn from those spaces. And we probably aren't as I don't know, we just haven't been taught as much about that being normal, but it is normal. So you went through that. You guys go through that in some significant ways. So just what do you think about when you think about those times?
Yeah. I think for us, the kind of tribulation period started about 4 years ago, 2019. We had just opened up our flagship store. It was just beautiful. Like, we put every bit of effort into that, and again, community. Even like, we invited people to come out and help us do certain things. Some of our best buddies like tiling together, just different things like that. But and we had, at this point in 2019, had been roasting for about 3 or 4 years, and had started to like, oh wow, we are now a resource for other shops. We're able to connect and to do all these, amazing things in the industry, and the connections with our producers and ethical sourcing, and just really doing things locally that honor things globally. Like, it was just all like lining up. And so it felt so good, 2019, to be in that new, like, huge space. I mean, it was 4,000 square feet building. And towards the end of that year, we had a car crash in the front of the building. So it was a few months after we had opened, and it left the front part of our cafe like inoperable, and also just looked really bad from the outside. Like, there was plywood up. The city wouldn't let us put a banner. It was just like kind of to cover up the plywood. So it was just like, oh wow, doesn't look like we're open type of thing. And so that was the first thing that was really hard. Everyone ended up being okay, but it was just so scary to walk through. I remember being in the shop that day when that car crashed through, and some of my friends from the community and some of our regulars were in that front room, and like it just, wow, it was the scariest thing that ever happened. It sounded like a bomb went off, and everyone ended up being okay. And it was an elderly lady that thought she was pressing the brakes when she was pressing the gas, and she just kept flooring the gas. But even she was okay. We got her out, and but yeah, so that happened, and literally a few months after that, COVID hit, and that was just such another crushing blow. And it was honestly like, for Jay and I as small business owners, it was like, is this it? And we just tried to get as creative as we possibly could in that season. And we asked the team, we were like, hey, what do y'all want to do? Do y'all still want to work, or do you what do we want to do here as a company? Because we didn't want to sacrifice their health. But as a team, everyone wanted to work and they wanted to get creative. And so we did some crazy stuff in that season. Like, man, I remember we were selling toilet paper to like butter to like, hey, we'll bring you a latte and like all your house, needs. And we just tried to like meet the community where they were at in that season, and like, hey, let's not focus on survival as much, but just get creative and meet needs. And so we just did that. We launched care packages, and we sent out like this like package of candles. Oh, and that's another thing we started doing. We started doing candles and just doing hobbies because there was no one able to come in the shops. We were like, hey, let's learn new things. And so we started making candles, and our staff loved it so much, and I loved it so much that we just started selling them. And so we put them in care packages with chocolate and with coffee, and like sent them all across the nation. And it was just the most beautiful thing. But it was still so hard. I feel like the business was changing every day. It just got so much just change fatigue. And then, finally kind of COVID's starting to wear down, and like we're getting back to normal, and the fire hit last fall. And now we're left completely without a business home. And that was like, I could go on about that for like a whole podcast episode as well. But I think what just like going through all that, like obviously Kent, and Lauren, y'all like kind of saw that season for us, and you saw like the devastation and the decisions we had to make were just like so hard, so heartbreaking. And but we were able to keep operating, and like, man, just again, some doors opened. We're able to just office out of some temporary spaces and roast up in Decatur, and keep the wholesale business side going. And it was a lot to process and work through with the team. And that's where we had to get Kent, you coming in at Kent Studios, and just like, hey, we just felt like we need to take this time to figure out who we want to be, who we are. And we know we still have a lot left to give. But we were just confused, and I think too, trauma kind of does that to you. It leaves like a haze over where things just leave cloudy, feel cloudy, and you just need support and help to get you through. And we had so much of that. And man, I learned so much about leading through adversity through that season, and being a creative through adversity in that season, and being a human through adversity in that season, and still are a little bit in that season. We haven't reopened a cafe. We have reopened our roastery, and got a training lab, got a retail where people can come and buy whole beans and get some free drip coffee. And we're able to operate so well now already in just such a short amount of time. But it's still like, in that season, I had to just simplify things, and I had to just like, okay, Jay and I kept having to ask like the important questions. Like, obviously the things that we were working on were like completely off the table, once the fire hit. It was like, what now type of thing. And we just kept focused on what is most helpful and hopeful for our team. Those were like big things that were just like, okay, is it helpful? Is it hopeful? If it is, we're gonna put energy towards it. If it's not, we're gonna try and set it aside for right now and process it when we need to process it. And so yeah, leading through adversity, just a big thing. And man, I can't tell you how this last season has shaped who Jay and I are and who our business is, like the cultivating relationships and exploring beauty. Like we exist like for that in a way we never did before. Yes, we loved growing together with coffee ideas and people. And we love like, oh man, I miss our community so much in that spot that we had. But now I have this gratitude that's even bigger than like what I experienced with, in Coffee Station, or what I experienced at that avocado the first time, or that sushi. Lauren, a person that we both know, once, or not once, but said, I think it was like last weekend or the weekend before, but you can't be grateful when you're entitled. And like when something gets taken away, or when you realize, hey, this might not last forever, or there's this gratitude where, man, like, yeah, like I got to make coffee today for our team, and so the people who are coming in to buy some whole beans or just stop by to see the roastery, and man, it's just a renewed gratitude. As Edison, there's no reason why we should still be here. Like the odds of those things happening and those circumstances, like that's crazy. I mean, I know we've been in business for 10 years, but that's crazy. And so the fact that we get to do what we get to do for another day, and that we get to, I mean, even last week, we got to train 3 different shops throughout last week. And it was just like life giving and cultivating, and like our team, just like, man, you got to see them shine, and you got to see them just do what they love. And yeah, so we are incredibly grateful. I don't even know how to put that into words rightly, other than like, it's a gift. It's a gift, and it's one not like, I'm just trying not to take for granted every single day. And every time we get to do an event right now, or train a shop, or every time we get to meet with one of our producers, or every time I get to see like one of our staff members, like the last Friday, our head roaster was just sharing his experience with this new coffee shop of like, hey, this is how I felt when I got to, and how honoring it was when I got to, brew and like serve Rodrigo's coffee back to him, which is one of our producers. And he's just a genius producer. I mean, like, he gets into like some crazy stuff, like, like anaerobic fermentation and carbonic maceration, all these like fancy words and stuff with coffee. He just is like doing it, right? And we get to be a part of that, and we get to honor his work. And then also with like, our producers in Guatemala are coming next month, and like we get to host them. And so there's these things that we get to be a part of, and there's these things that like I get to see the team, just like even Miranda just like picking out plants, and like she has such a gift for aesthetic and for like, making a welcoming space, and seeing her just decorate and stuff, not only for us, but for the accounts that come in and like that we get to train, or for the community that comes in. And it's just so cool. And so, yeah, all I have to say is like, we are thankful. We are so, so thankful. And I think when, as, an entrepreneur, as a creative, when you can just function out of gratitude, and let all the like details or or the things that aren't perfect just kind of rest, and you can just like be grateful for what you have, or what you get to do. It's just a really powerful thing. Yeah. And so one of the quotes, I think, I'm going to read it because I don't want to butcher it, but that I learned just in this season is it's one of my favorite quotes right now, but it's lighthouses don't go running over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining, by Anne Lamott. And I just love that because like, in the season, we couldn't just immediately fix things. And it was my desire, like, let's rush open, like reopening a cafe, or let's do everything we can to rebuild as quickly as possible. And that just wasn't wise. And it wasn't the steps that we needed to take right now that we knew for the health of our company and for the flourishing of our business that we needed to step into. And so, just getting to do what we get to do and like not necessarily trying to solve all the world problems, but there's another quote I love, like, do for the one that you want to do for all, right? And that's what we're really pressing into right now is like, man, the one shop that we get to help open, or the one customer that does come through our doors, or the one employee that I had that check-in with, or, that one podcast I get to do, do for the one what you wish you could do for all. And so we're just trying to make the most of those moments. And it's just been so rewarding. And I can't say like how much, yes, it's been the hardest season of our business, but also I feel more newness and life and just, passion, than we've ever felt. So, and a lot of that's Jay too. Most of it's Jay. Jay and the team, like they hold up my arms. They know how to support and to love well. So.
Man,
shoot. Did we go over? Oh man, I'm so sorry, guys.
It's okay.
You're fine.
When I think about your story, Melanie, I was jotting some things down, just the courage that it took. We've got a tagline, creativity meet courage. Over and over again, it took courage for you guys. I could have like pushed it to retirement, but you didn't.
Yeah.
This was laid on your heart and you wanted to go for it. The courage it took to strike out on your own. The courage it took to expand to a different location. The courage it took to rebuild after the car drove through the window. I mean, there are all these things that you could have just said, you know what, it's for later. It's not now. But you kept showing up and using your creativity with courage. And then I love that you had this eye for the community. And so, like you said, do it for the one, that you, not just the community, broadly, but also the community that you were cultivating with your staff. So I think there's a lot for me personally, and I'm sure many that are listening here, that maybe it's not a shop you're opening, but it's something that you've been put on your heart that you could find every reason under the sun not to go and do. But to step into that, to have the courage to step in, to start putting, building maybe a bar, so to speak, that maybe you have no business building a bar. I don't know if a countertop, if that was an issue at the first. All right.
Yeah.
Was that?
No. Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
But that you tried and then it didn't really work out. So you had to replace it with the real thing, going after it, holding it loosely. Yes, there was a shadow side to the grit, but there was also a golden side to that grit because it pushed you through to the next thing, to not give up. And then, just continuing to show up and go for it, ask for clarity, and then to hold it loosely and have gratitude. I just think whoever's listening, right now to this story, that might not be a coffee shop they want to open or some kind of brick and mortar, but maybe some kind of dream where, man, just I'm drawing from y'all's story, Melanie, and I'm just so grateful for you guys for showing up, continuing to show up, and continuing kind of to do the thing.
Do the thing. Yep. Yeah, we love it. And so thanks for saying that. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like, I don't, I love courage, and I love that tagline that y'all have. It's It's amazing.
Go Kit.
Go Kit.
Well, I just want to say, like, you've been able to say thank you to people, but I just know from talking to people in our community, just, like on behalf of those people, that aren't sitting in front of the mic, just thank you and Jay and the team for doing all that you guys have done to cultivate relationships. And truly that's happened, whether it's been in the cafe or it's people that are ordering these beans that are from all these amazing producers and these great flavors. And then they're doing what you and Jay grew up doing and what you did with Vlad of getting to have great conversations around good coffee. And I love that. Just thinking about all those people out there that you guys have impacted. And then just the exploration of beauty that happens in that is really cool. And I know of lots of stories of in the shop and outside of the shop, just where really amazing conversations have taken place, like turning points for people in their life. And so you guys need to hear that and have courage put in your hearts. It's really been significant. So it's honestly been humbling and so beautiful to be a part of. One of the things, exploring beauty, like the community has, I know this has been a lot of like, okay, Jay and I built this type of thing, but like, really, we feel the community has built so much more of the important parts than what we have as far as those cultivations and to get to be a part of it and to witness it and to play alongside, like with people, with food and beverage and just with a space and with coffee, it's just so incredible. So we are grateful. Awesome. Coop, Lauren, anything for you guys that went by fast? And it's like already.
I did.
So.
Good.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on, Mel. For people that want to try your coffee, those kind of things, I'm going to put the website in the show notes. So it's a quick and easy link. Anything else? I know you guys are on the socials. What's the handle? What's the handle?
Edison Coffee Co. at Edison Coffee Co. Great. So you can check it out. Follow them there. Y'all do a great job with social. I know it's been a team effort there, but we got a great marketing team and a lot of fun. So awesome. Well, all right. Hey, thanks for listening, and thanks again, Mel, for joining us, and
thanks so
to
much
Jay,
for
who I know you're representing, and so grateful for you guys, and for everybody else. We will see you on our next episode.
All right, y'all are crushing it. Keep it up.
Here, kid. You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't?